Hey everybody. For our moment of Black History today, we have Dorothy Height, who many of you may have heard of. If not, once again, please feel free to do your research. But I want to give you a little taste of who she is. So Dorothy Height was born in Richmond, Virginia in 1912. Height had established herself early as a student with exceptional oratorical skills, so on and so forth. She went to NYU. She had a Bachelor of Science in Education and a master's degree in educational psychology. Like I said, Black women had really led the way in terms of that. And she did postgraduate work in social work. Anyway, Dorothy Height eventually becomes the president of the National Council of Negro Women, which for almost a century was such a powerful organization. It still exists, but it's not as powerful as it once was. So in 1975, she was interviewed about her experiences during the civil rights movement. She died during the Obama era. Obama actually gave her eulogy. So it is not clear whether she realized it during the 60s or she realized it later, but when she was interviewed, at some point, Dorothy Height saw the task before the National Council of Negro Women. She felt like it was not to let the drive for integration and voting rights, the drive for integration and voting rights come before concerns like childcare, women's employment, and sexual exploitation, which had been an issue and still is in the Black community. And she had to get civil rights organizations to see that women's issues were, in fact, race issues. At the turn of the century, the National Association of Colored Women brought race and sex together by arguing that race could rise no higher than its women, that racial issues had to be addressed in the context of Black women's concerns. They were doing that in 1900, and there was this masculine ethos of the 60s and 70s, and it's not to suggest in any shape, way, or form that Black men somehow, that things aren't bad for them, but it's come often at the expense of Black women's experiences. That's the point I'm getting at. So just now we've started to see this resurgence of Black women, but Black women had already laid the blueprint for this. We're doing this before. So it was difficult to make the same argument for some reason in the 1960s about race issues being women's issues as well. At the century's start, there was little civil rights agitation. Black people had adopted the strategy of racial uplift, and the location of activity was the family and community, which were traditional women's domains. So in the 60 years that had passed, so by the time we got to 1960, civil rights had gradually become a priority, and it became a national issue. The thrust on fighting back, on courage in the face of violence, on voting, longer prerogative of men before it was of women. The 1960s was very much a masculine decade, and Dorothy Height's concerns suggest she knew it. Yet if any organization could keep the sexual discrimination of Black women in focus, it should have been the National Council of Negro Women. And it was a very open, secular Black women's organization. So in other words, Muslims and stuff could be a part of it as well. According to historian Deborah Gray White, the masculine ethos of the era was certainly an impediment, but so was the civil rights movement's conflation of gender and class issues. And Dorothy Height, tries to keep Black women's issues at the forefront, but there are also arguments that, she was willing to kind of help conflate those issues because she felt like she was between a rock and a hard place as a leader. So anyway, I encourage you to go and study more about her. It's your Black History Fact of the Day. Have a great day.